evening and thank you for joining us. Red Lake Fire 49 continues to burn around the town of Red Lake. The fire is still deemed out of control, which has forced the MNRF to tighten restrictions on community access. But a turn in the efforts to control the blaze may be looking up, as Avery McRae reports Mother Nature is joining the fight.
Fire crews in Red Lake continue their efforts to suppress the 550-hectare blaze, and that's down from a previous estimate of 750 hectares. Heavy equipment operators have completed a line of fire breaks along the south end of the fire, and ground crews have continued to manage their hose lines while being supported above by helicopters bucketing water on hot spots along the fire's edge. While the crews have done tremendous work in controlling the blaze, Fire Information Officer Chris Marchand says the real story of the day is the rainfall.
By 8 p.m. Last night, we had 12 millimeters of rain that had fallen in the fire area. And, the lower fire behavior that is expected from that rain really gives time and opportunity for the firefighting effort to become more established and prevent that fire from encroaching any closer to the community and as well to Highway 105, which lies to the east.
The rain is expected to assist in the firefighting efforts through Friday night into the weekend, with up to 60 millimeters expected by Saturday morning. However, there is also risk of a thunderstorm accompanied by high winds, which would disrupt work on the fire. Meanwhile, the OPP say they've received reports of some residents either returning to their property or not following evacuation orders. With the fire still not under control, the MNRF stepped in and tightened restrictions in the community.
And as of this morning, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry issued an implementation order which effectively restricts access for anyone to the municipality of Red Lake.
For Red Lake residents who, absolutely have to access that area, there are options, in terms of obtaining a travel permit from the MNRF. And they can inquire about that process by calling the Red Lake District MNRF office at 807-727-1349.
The measures restrict access of certain roads and crown lands and only enhances the steps taken by the municipality to evacuate the town. OPP officers are staffing checkpoints to monitor access until such time that the MNRF revokes their order. Avery McRae, TBT News.
Meanwhile, Premier Doug Ford is expressing outrage following reports of gouging by a Dryden hotel that's playing host to many of the Red Lake evacuees. It comes following reports the Comfort Inn has hiked its rates from $110 a night to $400 a night. The province is paying the expenses of evacuees, and Ford says the move is unacceptable.
And here they go, the greedy people that want to gouge these desperate people and charge them $400 a night when you're advertising $110. You think that's right? I don't think it's right. They're gouging the taxpayers, they're gouging the people. So, something, whoever the franchisee owner is, I'm calling headquarters, going to tell them, get your act together.
The Premier says he will be calling the company's headquarters to demand a refund. Thunder Bay Fire Rescue has confirmed smoke that blanketed a large part of the city's south side last night resulted from a sizable bushfire on the southern end of McKellar Island. Fire crews were called to an area around Carpenter Street around 6 o'clock to an outbreak that grew to about a hectare in size. 5 pumper trucks, the harbor rescue boat, and an ATV were all called into service to surround the blaze and contain its spread. It was finally declared out at about 10 o'clock. There are some late nights ahead for Lakehead School Board officials as they try to respond to Ontario's evolving back-to-school plan. Yesterday, the province announced that it will allow school boards to take up to 2% of their operating budgets from their own reserves to hire more teachers and reduce class sizes at their own discretion. Typically, boards can only access reserves up to 1% of their operating budget. For the Lakehead Board, that announcement frees up just over $2 million. Business Superintendent David Wright says board trustees have expressed a desire to reduce class sizes, particularly from JK to grade 3. Wright says that could mean purchasing additional space or retrofitting classrooms that are currently available.
We're getting an inventory right now of the classrooms that aren't in use in our schools. Not all of our schools are 100% full, so that'll be our first priority, obviously. And then we'll look at excess space if we're able to fill more than that. But there's a cost to reducing class size. Obviously, we'll look to hire more people.
Wright notes the board currently has about $4.5 million in reserves. Due to COVID-19, he believes now is the time to withdraw some of those funds.
We have some structural deficit issues right now that we're working through, and so completely depleting reserves probably isn't a financially prudent thing to do. But some people call reserves a rainy day fund, and the cliche, the latest cliche is that it's pouring. And so I know indications from our trustees certainly that they support accessing those reserve funds. Obviously, our preference would be that September reopening would be fully funded by the ministry, but that's not the reality. And so we're working with the flexibility we have.
And Catholic board officials were not available for comment today. And there are several questions to be answered following that major funding announcement yesterday by the Ford government aimed at assisting with the reopening of schools this fall. Despite the hundreds of millions of dollars being offered up, many parents are still concerned it's not enough to keep their children safe. Heather Wright has more.
With COVID-19 circulating in the community, many parents still don't know if they're sending their kids back to school.
Larger class sizes are concerning. Ideally, we would like them to be smaller. Whether or not, if the class sizes are still big, would we keep them home? That's the decision we're wrestling with.
Now the date students may return to class is also in flux. The education minister says boards can stagger the start date of school over the week of September 8th and perhaps beyond it.
I'll work with boards if they think they need a tad more time. I know that there's an overall broader imperative to get the kids back into class. So we know that for their wellness and their development and their mental health, but we're going to be flexible, we're going to be reasonable.
To help make the return to school safe, the minister has granted school boards access to $500 million in rainy day funds to increase physical distancing and make smaller class sizes. But for the Toronto District School Board, it's not a simple solution.
There is not a great appetite for digging into those reserves and taking a huge amount out of it. We've already taken some out of the reserves to balance last year's budget, about $10 million.
The TDSB says it's looking at using some reserve money and recently announced provincial money for staffing to create a model with 15 or 20 students per classroom. In a letter from the board's interim director of education to trustees, it says this model would require shorter school days for prep. And members of the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, including librarians, guidance counselors, and coaches, would be reassigned to a classroom. The model is dependent on securing space like community centers for additional classrooms, which could mean a delay in arranging transportation to these new sites and making agreements with unions.
A child is dead following a single vehicle crash near Dryden Thursday afternoon. At approximately 4 o'clock, OPP received a call of a vehicle that had left the roadway and come to rest on its roof. One occupant of the vehicle was taken to hospital, but the other, a 10-year-old girl, was pronounced dead at the scene. The cause of the crash is still under investigation. And OPP and Pickle Lake have released details of a disturbing incident last month that occurred on Highway 599 near Ace Lake. Police say they're looking into reports of a southbound black pickup truck that swerved to hit a dog and in the process almost struck 3 people walking along the highway. The dog died as a result of the injuries. Anyone with information on the incident is being urged to contact the OPP. A Thunder Bay father is expressing his frustration after the child care center his 3-year-old son was enrolled in suddenly closed its doors. Dustin Krebs is one of roughly 50 parents with children who were supposed to attend the W.J. Griffiths Child Care Center. Earlier this week, they were abruptly informed that with only 3 weeks until school starts, they need to now make other arrangements. Corey Nordstrom has more.
It was a massive surprise. We had no previous warning of this. We had actually just 2 months before had confirmed that our son had a spot when it opened back up in September.
Now Dustin Krebs and his wife have had to convert their backyard into a place for their 3-year-old to play and learn. But the confusion lies at 717 John Street, the place his son had attended for more than a year. On the afternoon of June 11th, Krebs received a letter from Community Living Thunder Bay, which oversees the W.J. Griffiths Children's Center, saying that the facility for kids aged 18 months to 6 years had permanently closed.
They have now displaced 54 children. 54 children who are in a very malleable age where they need this socialization, they need this structure for their proper development.
In the letter that was sent to parents, Community Living Thunder Bay explains that the center no longer fits their mandate, which was to provide specialized childcare to parents of children with disabilities. Krebs lost his job due to the pandemic and was scheduled to start new work under the impression that his 3-year-old had a daycare slot in September. He notes a shortage of childcare in the city is making the task ahead even more difficult.
It can be a year-long wait to get into any of the city-run facilities, which is why I found that the letter particularly patronizing, because it just made light of the fact that this is a struggle and that for whatever reason they felt that a 3-week notice was sufficient to tell parents to go find somewhere else. Good luck to you. Chin up, bud.
And to make matters worse, Krebs says it was the parents that were informing staff at the center about the closure decision.
They found out that they lost their jobs because parents were told and were contacting the facility workers and saying, hey, I've heard this, I received this letter, what's going on? Imagine that shock.
Community Living Thunder Bay says they will support students and employees through the transition. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Another Thunder Bay resident is facing charges following the latest child pornography arrest. The charges come following an investigation by the city cybercrimes unit into the downloading of material containing child sexual abuse that led to the execution of a search warrant yesterday at a Picton Avenue residence and the seizure of a number of electronic devices. 52-year-old James Darcel Pepompi has been charged with possession, accessing, and distribution of child pornography. He's been remanded into custody pending a future court appearance. Somewhere along the north shore of Lake Superior, there's a moose that is thankful to be alive after being rescued by anglers earlier this month. While fishing on Lake Superior near Wawa, Steve Morin and a friend noticed this bull moose struggling in the middle of the lake, swimming in circles and slipping under the water occasionally. Morin has a deep respect for animals, so he leapt into action by grabbing onto the animal's antlers and guiding it nearly 1,000 feet to shore with the assistance of some kayakers. It's a move he wouldn't recommend unless you know what you're doing, as animals can be unpredictable when under duress.
It was still quite challenging because he is a big animal. He's 600-700 pounds. And, it's kind of a struggle. And you don't know what's going to happen. He's got a big antlers on him there. He can use as a weapon if he needs to. So you got to be careful.
Once on shore, the animal briefly stuck around before heading back into the bush. The RFDA and United Way of Thunder Bay teamed up to host a drive-through barbecue today. The event featured local foods with all proceeds going to the United Way. Cars lined Syndicate Avenue with residents eager to give back to the community and enjoy some homemade local food. Supporters could either drive or walk up to place their order. Featured food included homemade bison wild rice burgers on a bannock bun and the Dewdrop Inn's Dewey Dog. Regular burgers, hot dogs, and French fries were also available, with all the product coming from local businesses. The team had a goal to raise $4,000, which they expect to hit by day's end. Food service manager with the RFDA, Tanner Harris, says he was truly blown away by the turnout from the community.
Oh, we've never done an event like this, so we could be only prepared as we can really think it's going to be, right? This is phenomenal. This traffic flow is phenomenal. We wish that we can get more people in faster, but definitely we're getting them fed.
Harris is hopeful they'll hold a bigger event in the RFDA parking lot next summer, but says it will depend on the state of the COVID-19 pandemic. City officials have put out an advisory to motorists who frequent the area around the intersection of the Harbor Expressway and Balmoral Avenue. Upgrades are scheduled to take place on Monday on the traffic signals at that intersection. While the work is underway, the lights will flash, indicating drivers should treat the intersection like a four-way stop. Motorists are being asked to exercise caution. And the first ever Raise the Bar golf tournament in memory of local golfer Dustin Barr teed off at the Whitewater Golf Club today. The event is the first of many planned by a charity in Barr's name run by his parents. Dustin's former golf teacher says he's overwhelmed by the support they've received. Barr passed away in March, and one of the bigger events at this tournament in his memory was a Balls from Heaven helicopter drop. Organizers sold golf balls for $10 a piece, or 3 for $20, and the closest ball to the hole won a $2,500 prize. The balls were dropped in the helicopter, and 5 ended up in the hole.
Dreams Alive by running this Keeping Dustin Barr's Dreams Alive charity golf tournament. So we started a charity and in his honor, and we've partnered with some of the groups that have really helped him out, and Children's Wish and Ronald McDonald House were a big supporters of him when he was traveling back and forth to Toronto to do his treatments. So today we're going to give back, and as we grow, we'll grow the charities, and the golf tournament will be something that happens every year.
With just 6 weeks to prep for the tournament, organizers raised $40,000, $15,000 of which came from the helicopter drop. It's being donated to the Ronald McDonald House. The remaining money will go to other charities in the coming weeks.
Well, Avery, the conditions were pretty good from Monday to Thursday all week long, but Friday, the clouds started coming in.
Yeah, and the clouds are rolling in, maybe some rain later, but we'll get to that. Another huge